it's the Batman Statue Collector, your Dark Knight of Collecting, and welcome back to Brotherhood of the Bat Collectibles. And boy, do we have a very special treat for us today because this person needs no real introduction because you guys know him in the community, but I am so excited to welcome Mr. X himself from the Xtreme channel to our show today. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Chris. Really excited. I think this is the second or third time you've had me on, and today we are really talking about my favorite subject, so I'm stoked.
Well, today we're going to be talking about our top 10 favorite statues, our licensed statues in our collections. Of course, this is something that changes on an almost daily basis, I think. Would you not agree?
Absolutely. If we had filmed this yesterday, there may be a different one on my top 10, and for sure they would be in a different order.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the funny thing about this video is we actually did this video already, but we had technical issues, and so we are refilming it today. So I'm really glad, and thank you again for refilming this with me today.
Absolutely, and like I said, my list has changed from our previous, so if I throw something at you that you don't remember, just know that's why, because it really differs. Your mood can affect it, pop culture, hype, anything can affect the way you feel towards a certain piece.
Absolutely, and it's interesting because, I don't know about you, but it was incredibly hard for me to put these in order because there's my favorites, of course, but doing a top 10 list, there's like so many great pieces that we both have in our collections. Was it difficult for you to put them in a certain order in the first place?
Absolutely, and we mentioned this in the first video that we had technical difficulties. It originally was a top 5 list. And you and I couldn't agree on, or we couldn't figure out which were a top 5. We had to increase it to a top 10.
Yeah, absolutely, and trying to narrow it down to 5, very, very difficult for us, just because we have so many amazing pieces. But anyway, so like I said, today we're going to be doing our top 10 favorite pieces that are licensed in our collection. And why don't you go ahead and start with your number 10?
So my number 10, actually, I'm a big fan of all companies. I haven't got it on my shirt. But I realized I didn't have a Sideshow piece in my top 10, and which is ridiculous because Sideshow is one of the greatest, manufacturers and distributors. So I thought, well, what's my favorite Sideshow piece? So in at number 10 is their Thanos on Throne maquette. I absolutely love this. I think, Thanos for me has always been an iconic villain. If you follow my channel at all, you know that Silver Surfer is my favorite character, and his arch nemesis is Thanos, so I've always loved him, even before the MCU. But this was one of the most expensive pieces I bought when it first came out about 2 or 3 years ago. I still love it to this day.
It's such a great piece. I've never actually seen that one in person. That's one I really want to because I love Marvel, of course. I love Thanos, but I just can't collect the Marvel stuff, but I love that piece, and I'm so glad that you have that because it's iconic. And speaking of Silver Surfer, I'm assuming you're excited about the Silver Surfer reveal, hopefully this year at San Diego Comic-Con by Daniel Bell.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. A lot of people are coming out saying, oh, I'm already saving up money to put down. I'm like, you haven't seen it yet, and arguably it's Silver Surfer and it's Daniel Bell, so how can it go wrong? Two of the greatest in the world. But then I realized I do that all the time. I save up money for pre-orders before it's revealed as well. So most likely that will join the Xtreme collection.
Well, that's cool. I hope it's really good. I hope because I know you're going to probably love it. I'm excited. I can't believe they've waited this long for the reveal. But anyway, it's going to be hopefully a really great piece. But my number 10 is a Prime 1 piece. It is the Prime 1 Arkham Knight Harley Quinn. And I love this piece for a lot of different reasons. It was one of my early Prime 1 pieces. Everybody that watches this channel knows that I like the 1/3 scale stuff. It's my favorite scale to collect, and I just absolutely love it. It actually really speaks to me because it's one of my favorite versions of Harley. I like the way she looked. I like the cut and sew element on her with the skirt. I think that adds a lot to it. I like the base. And I like all the little little bells and whistles, like the dolls that came with the exclusive, or the little Jack in Box. I think that those are a lot of fun, but I just really feel like the piece captures her personality a lot. And again, I just love that look. The more modern look of Harley, it's okay to me, but I like kind of that hybrid between the Jester look and the modern look, and I feel like that's what the Arkham games really did well. But I just absolutely love that piece. So I'm actually a little surprised it's not a little higher on my list, but that's my number 10.
And you're getting the new Prime 1 1/3 Harley as well, right?
I am. I currently have the regular on pre-order. I'm on the wait list for the deluxe, and that's the one with her gun hand, with the bang flag pointing forward. I'm hoping that that converts, but there will be that Harley in my collection in some form or fashion. But I just think it's really cool. Now the base is maybe a little bit too big, but I just feel like that's a really awesome representation of her as well. And it is a modern take, but it's a great piece, great piece. How about your number 9?
So my number 9 is to clarify, this list is only pieces that we have owned or we do own. And my number 9 I just got, and it isn't assembled yet because it was 4 boxes that were over 4 feet tall, and only 3 of them arrived. So this is Prime One Studios' Shockwave from the Michael Bay Transformers movies. And I know what you're saying. It's not even assembled, Mr. X. How can you say it's one of your top 10? Because I've looked at the 100 pieces I have, still waiting on the additional 4th box, which of course is the base. The base is the one piece they haven't shipped yet, or I haven't received. But it is just mind-blowing. The size, the presence, the sculpt, the paint. I cannot wait to get the remaining piece in and assemble it, but I can tell you for sure it's going to be one of my top 10 pieces.
All of those pieces are just so incredible. There's just so much detail, and I'm amazed by how big they've gotten. Like some of the original ones I remember were big, but I feel like these new pieces are just mind-blowingly massive. Do you have a spot picked out for them?
I do. So I actually created an island in the middle of the room, and I have to have multiple shelves together just to support it because it's over 36 inches wide and over 36 inches deep. It's definitely a centerpiece.
I was complaining about my New 52 Batman taking up 15 inches on the base. I can't even imagine.
Definitely. So so it'll be assembled soon. What's your number 9?
So my number 9 is kind of an older piece in my collection, but it's the Sideshow Collectibles life-size Joker bust. This was a piece that at first, when I first saw it, I wasn't all that big of a fan. I really wanted that more cartoony, that long chin look. But I went ahead and got it because I did get the Batman bust, and I wanted it to complement. Of course, I'm kind of known for this display back here with the 2 busts on the side. And the more I've had it, the longer I've had it, the more I've appreciated the piece. It's incredibly realistic. It's probably the number one thing when people come into this room, they're really creeped out by that Joker. I'm amazed by how many comments people say on my YouTube videos. It'll say, like that Joker's always creeping over your shoulder. And they're right. It is a very creepy piece, but it's just really fun, and it has this big giant presence to it because it's life size. And so it's just definitely one of my favorites, and it's grown on me over the years. It's just a really fun piece.
What did you think of the new reveal at the 12 Days of Sideshow around Christmas of the new Joker bust?
I actually really like that piece as well. That's one that I am considering picking up. I just don't know if I have the space for it, but I actually really like the design of it. It is very cartoony looking, but it's maniacal. It just looks so cool. I don't love the Batman bust. It's okay. It complements it, but I really think this Joker could be a standalone piece somewhere in my collection. What do you feel about it?
I liked it a lot, actually. So I collect busts as well, but I only do movie busts. So it wouldn't be for me for that reason because you got to draw a line somewhere. But I liked it more compared to the older one. Of course, I haven't seen either in person, but like you said, I think the maniacal, the evilness, I like that kind of Joker. So that really appealed to me.
I've considered picking it up just to see and maybe doing a comparison between the two because I've been doing a lot of that lately, and I find that I end up liking the newer stuff better. So I really wanted just to see if it would work with the OG Batman bust. So that's definitely a possibility. So stay tuned to the channel for that. Who knows? I'll probably spend my money on that bust. But anyway, let's move on to number 8. What's your number 8 pick?
So my number 8 is by a fairly new company, and this was the first piece they ever produced, and the customer service and shipping was a nightmare. But the end product was amazing. And this is an anime piece. It is the Figurama Devilman vs. Amon. It's amazing in person. It's sculpted by the great Caleb. I have another piece of theirs on order, Attack on Titan, which I know the anime much better in that. It's just a centerpiece. I actually keep this one at my office, and it is definitely a head turner, even when you don't know much about the content or the characters behind it, but it's a very cool diorama. I absolutely love it.
That's one thing that I never got into. I never really got into anime. I think the kind of the hint that I got on it was the Batman Ninja. You know, that was a little bit more anime. But I just never got into it. So is it something you recommend me getting into at this point in my life, or do you think I would be just it's just too over my head?
Well, so recently I started buying more and more statues that were related. And because of that, I started watching some of the series on Netflix, whether that's Berserk or Attack on Titan or uh, this new one I'm watching. I don't even want to pronounce it because I'll pronounce it incorrectly, but Evangelion or something. And now I'm actually starting to read some of the books based off of it. It's a lot more entertaining than I think I would have liked 20 years ago as a young adult. As kind of a middle-aged adult now, I'm really enjoying it, actually.
Okay, so if you had one to pick that I should maybe start with on Netflix, which would you say?
I really liked Attack on Titan. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, well, I'll check it out. Thanks. That's awesome. So great. That's a great piece. My number 8 is the Sideshow Collectibles Bane, the premium format. There have been a lot of different Banes over the years, but I feel like it's still one of the best. I actually would really like if it was 1/3 because, again, that's my favorite scale. But I just feel like it's one of the best premium formats that Sideshow has ever done up to this point. There's so many great new ones though, so it'd be maybe it's maybe getting a little bit harder, but I do really feel like it is just has such an epic presence. You know, he's hulking over the bat signal, and it just looks so great. It does have that cut and sew element, which I'm liking less and less these days. I like more fully sculpted, unless it's a cape. But it's just still such a great piece. Now, you have that piece too, don't you?
Yeah, I do. And actually, I did a video on countdown of what I think was the top 10 Sideshow pieces ever made. And I think that one came in at number 3. And I agree with you. It's phenomenal. And I think we talked about this during the video that we had to scrap. It stayed on Sideshow available for like 3 years, or if not longer. It was just ridiculous. And everybody I know who's owned it has the same feelings you and I do about it.
I always wonder if it was maybe like the price point. You know, at that time it was kind of an expensive piece, but now it's probably pretty reasonable. But I agree. I just couldn't believe how long it sat there because it is such an epic piece, underrated piece. And if you only have one Bane in your collection, that would easily be a great one to have. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. No, and that's currently my only Bane. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, how about your number 7?
So my number 7 is by Pyramid Studios, and again, it's one of those characters that I didn't get. I didn't know too much about the character until I ordered the statue, and then I found out more about about Batman Who Laughs. And I know this is one of your favorite pieces as well, Chris. It's amazing. The art alone, even if you don't have ties to the character, just blows you away. And I'm a huge fan of it. It's actually the centerpiece right now. It'll probably change of my 1/3 scale DC collection. Big fan.
It is such a great piece, and I have a feeling you're probably going to hear it in my list here soon. But I agree. The art is just insane, and it's just, again, even if you don't appreciate the art or the character or whether any of that, just looking at it, you immediately say like, "Holy crap! This is a whole different level of statue." I still have never seen anything like it. In terms of just sculpt and design with the chains and everything else. So I'm really glad that you have that piece in your collection. It's just such a great piece.
And now we run into the problem. If it is on your list later, we might have talked about it too much already. So,
That's right.
But what's your number 7?
So my number 7 is another Prime 1 piece, and it's one of the biggest pieces in my collection, one of the most expensive pieces in my collection, and that's the Arkham Origins Mr. Freeze. It's just an insane piece from top to bottom, from the ice shards that come out of it to the sheer bulk of him, the weight of him. Definitely, I think the heaviest body in my collection. Like, he's just pure polystone. And I love the Nora exclusive. I've explained this before, but like my dome, when I got her, it broke. And I super glued it back together, and it actually, because of the residue on the dome, it actually makes it look frosted. So I've actually kept that one on my display. But I just feel like it is the ultimate ultimate Mr. Freeze. I know Sideshow's coming out with one, and I have that one on pre-order, and I'm really excited about it. But I just feel like I just don't know if there'll ever be a better Mr. Freeze than the Arkham piece.
No, and I agree. And last time we filmed this, I need to say this disclaimer again. Don't go break your dome and try and reglue it and blame the Batman statue collector. But
That's right, because you will not get a replacement dome at this point, I guarantee it. But I was lucky enough to get one, but I don't actually use it, so it's pretty funny. But anyway, that's my number 7. How about your number 6?
so my number 6 is also a Thanos piece. This is by Queen Studios. This is their bust, their Thanos bust. It looks like Thanos is in my house. That's how amazing this is. It just blows me away every time I look at it. I currently have it displayed very low, and I have some Maji cases on order to display it higher because it's kind of a piece that commands that kind of attention. Not only with the huge price tag, obviously, but like I said, the best way to summarize this piece is it looks like Thanos is really in your house. If I got rid of all my busts, this is the one I would keep.
It's such an awesome piece. It's one that I really considered getting. I actually at one point kind of thought, well, maybe I'll change directions a little bit and just get all of those busts, just because they are so incredible. But at the same time, like I knew it would go against my theme, and that would open up a whole different can of worms. But I'm so glad that you have that piece. It is just it looks to be massive. Is it just massive?
It is. So they actually had to cut off part of the shoulder blades so it wasn't too big, but it is life-sized. I mean, Thanos' head is about 50% bigger than mine, his face alone. And it's funny you say that. I remember that video you launched where you were debating going all in with the Queen Studios DC line. I remember watching that. And I have most of it on order, and I think the Batman ships very soon, but I'm betting that they're going to continue down this path of success. I think I have 3 Queen Studios pieces, and I think you've owned one as well. They're just phenomenal.
Yeah, the detail is just insane on these pieces, and I can only imagine what the future holds in level of realism and detail. It's just going to be really exciting to collect those busts. If you're a bust collector, I know not everybody out there is, but man, congratulations on Thanos. It's phenomenal. My number 6 is another Prime 1 piece, and it is the Arkham Knight Joker. Actually, when I was doing this list, and I think maybe we talked about this last time, is I felt like it should be up a little bit higher. But it is just a phenomenal piece, and when I look at it, I really think of it as the Mark Hamill Joker. I really wanted something in my collection, and I do have the little mini-series bust, or the Batman the Animated Series bust, but I really wanted something high-end that was going to showcase the Mark Hamill voice in my head. That voice, animated series, whether it's the games, whether it's the movies, whatever he's voiced, I wanted something to capture that, and I feel like this piece, and that head sculpt in particular, captures Mark Hamill for me. What do you think of that piece?
So I was never a fan of it. I debated getting it because I wanted a Joker, and this is before they revealed the Bermejo Dam Joker, before Prime 1 revealed that. So this was one I was seriously contemplating on, but I'm not big into the animated series, so I do hear from many people, many fans, that Mark Hamill is arguably right up there with Heath and Jack as some of the greatest Jokers of all time. So I definitely get that appeal.
Yeah, I can understand where not everybody might not like that particular Joker piece, and I do agree that I think the Bermejo is a better piece, that's probably my most anticipated piece. But it's just, again, I really wanted something that's going to capture Mark Hamill, and that does it for me. And I like the colors, and the base is different than the other pieces in the line, just slightly, so it makes it a little bit more interesting. But anyway, I love that number 6 pick. All right, let's move on to our top 5 now. What's your number 5?
My number 5 is also Prime 1. Prime 1's getting a lot of love today. This is also a DC, Hush Superman. While I don't know the Hush story that well, this is a phenomenal Superman piece, period. In my opinion, it's the best Superman piece ever made, anywhere. It's amazing, from the presence, the sculpt, the paint. It's funny, I have him displayed next to Prime 1 Doomsday, which arguably would be, close to a top 10 piece. And sometimes I have him, facing forward like a museum, but because I have the fabric cape, I can simply just twist him, and then he's staring down Doomsday. So kind of a neat feature there as well.
Well, first of all, shame on you for not knowing Hush better. I mean, we need to get you. We need to get that book for you for sure, because it's still one of my favorites. But man, that Superman is just beyond phenomenal. I've thought about ordering it like 20 times. But I just didn't know if having this big thing of blue and red in my collection would stand out too much and be like, well, it's taken away from Batman. But The main thing is that I love the option of the fabric, but I also love the option of the sculpted. I think that both versions look good. Did you contemplate getting one or the other originally?
So I didn't at all actually. I agree with you. I normally like sculpted better. I think the only time that fabric is sometimes more acceptable, or for the majority of the time, is on capes. But for me, it was a space issue. So it wasn't a contest because the sculpted does take up quite a bit more space. So for that reason alone, I went with fabric.
Well, my number five is also a Hush piece, and that's the Hush Batman. So it's really cool that we both had Hush at number five. I picked that piece because it is, again, one of my favorite stories in my history of loving Batman, and I love this piece because it does capture that Jim Lee style really well. I'm definitely considering the Batcave edition, and maybe swapping this one out. I don't know. The only downside to this piece, in my opinion, is if collectors don't have a place to put it up high, it doesn't look very great. I feel like it does need to be up, because it looks like then he's kind of swooping down on Gotham. And again, it's very true to the art, and I think that maybe was a hindrance to this piece a little bit because it was so true. But I do tip my hat to Prime One for taking art and translating it literally in 3D form. What do you think of that piece?
So actually, I purchased it. I remember posting in the back when I was in a lot of Facebook groups. I posted it on in your Facebook group a picture of me watching you review it, and I ordered it the very next day. I think I went on the wait list, and I was able to get it a few weeks later. And then I actually had an incident with mine, so I had to return it. But it was truly beautiful, and the reason why I didn't seek it again was for the exact reason that you just stated. Where I was going to display it was low, and it just doesn't do well low. But I do have the new one on order, so I figure that'll be good enough.
That's awesome. So definitely check out his channel for that review because it'll be awesome. Well, let's move on to number four then. What's your number four pick?
So my number four is by XM Studios, and it's until Shockwave came along, it was one of the biggest pieces in my collection. This is their Hulkbuster. So this is the comic version, which a lot of people weren't really made aware of what Hulkbuster was until the MCU launched it in Age of Ultron. I was always a fan growing up. I was never a big fan of Iron Man, but I remember a lot of the comics where Hulkbuster did make a debut. And this one, the size alone, they say size doesn't matter, or some people say it does matter with statues. It does matter, in my opinion. Bigger isn't always better, but a lot of the time it is. And I think this piece, on top of the great paint and sculpt and concept, the size just puts it over the top.
It is just a phenomenal piece, and I love the size of it. I love the massiveness, and I love the sheen on it. I think it just looks so slick. A lot of collectors that I know have that piece, and I don't know. I just think it's one of the coolest statues ever made. It's just so phenomenal. And I was like you mentioned, I was somebody that first saw Hulkbuster as part of the movies. I didn't really understand, and then since then, of course, I've seen different versions in comics and things like that. But I just feel like it's such an epic piece, and I'm so glad that you have that one because it's just beyond epic. My number four is definitely a totally different direction than that, but it is the OG premium format Joker. And that pick might surprise some of you out there that it's so high on my list, especially since I've basically taken my entire case and put new statues in it, except for that Joker. And the reason why he's still in the case is because it is the quintessential Killing Joke Joker to me. It's taken directly from that book. The look and the sculpt of the head sculpt is just phenomenal. I don't know if there have been very many Joker head sculpts that have been as good. Of course, I mentioned the Prime One piece, and we mentioned the Bermejo piece. But I just absolutely still love that Joker head sculpt. And I really like the new Joker on Pogo Stick as well, but I just don't feel like it captured Joker's face in the same way, that classic Joker look. Now again, Joker is always evolving, always changing, but for me, that is a piece I can never see leaving my collection. I really like that piece.
It's interesting. At one point in my collecting career, I owned 4 different Sideshow Jokers. And the 5th is that one. I was missing that one, coincidentally. I've never seen it in person, but again, I can see those ties back to a more traditional Joker, classic Joker, that they haven't been able to reproduce. Because it seems like nowadays, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but they try and modernize everything. and a lot of people like that as well as the classic. I'm kind of in that same camp.
Well, absolutely. And by the way, if you're ever in Kansas, definitely stop by and we'll let you see that piece because I think you'll love it. It's just neat to see if you've never seen it. But anyway, let's move on to number three then. What's your number three?
My number three is another Prime One piece. This is another Transformer. This is the Jet Power Optimus Prime. And what's funny about this, I talked about this last time, is this character was in, they made 5, 6 movies. This character was in it for 5 minutes. And this is a monstrous size piece. It's extremely expensive. It's sold out. I know it's sold out on Sideshow's website. And it had 99 pieces when I assembled it. So, almost turns into a Lego. But it doesn't look like a Lego. It is just a commanding presence. I just redid my Transformers area. It's one of the first things you see is when you walk into that room. And every time I stop, I literally stop to look at it.
It is such an epic piece, and it's massive, and it's so well done. Prime One, again, that's where they got their name. They got their name from Transformers. And the amount of detail they put into it, and again, 99 pieces, that's crazy. I don't know about you, but I like putting together Legos. It's very therapeutic to me. Was it therapeutic to you to put all those pieces together?
So it wasn't because I did it on camera for YouTube. And you know this more than anybody. When you're filming for YouTube, whether it's assembling a piece or reviewing a piece or filming an event, you miss out on enjoying it. Not fully, but to an extent, you absolutely do. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. I'm amazed by how many people say that they love to tune in because they can see my excitement and my joy from a statue. And I'm glad that it comes off that way. But you're exactly right that there's so many times where I'm like, I'll finish the video, but I'm so worried about the video. I'm like, I don't even really remember the feeling of getting it open. I don't remember that. And so, yeah, you're exactly right that you're so worried about and focused on getting everything right, getting the camera angles done and edited properly, that it does take a lot of the joy out of it. So it's stressful because you don't want to screw up on camera.
Yeah, because when you do, they point it out. What's your number three?
Well, my number three pick is a newer piece to my collection, and it's quickly become one of my absolute favorites in my collection. And I'm surprised because it's the new 52 Batman by Prime One Studios in conjunction with Sideshow Collectibles. This piece is just beyond epic, and it was a piece that I had on pre-order. I canceled it, sat on it forever, and I wasn't even thinking about it, but then I saw some statue reviews and some pictures come out of this piece, and I said, I just have to see it. I have to see it in person because it's looking so good. And at the end of the day, I'm so thankful that I did because it is just one of the best Batman statues. It's so dynamic. Most of my statues in my collection are museum poses, and that's great. They show off a lot of detail, but this particular piece is just so incredibly dynamic. It tells a story. It's taken directly from art, and it just speaks Batman to me, and I'm so glad that I own it. What do you think about that one?
So just like you, I had it on order and I canceled it, losing my deposit. I actually had a few of the other 52 pieces that were part of this line, the Cyborg and Superman, and I love those. I've sold them since then just because I went in a different direction. But I wanted to pose this against the Superman. I thought those two next to each other with Batman holding the kryptonite and Superman shooting his eyes, I thought it would be phenomenal. And I do regret it, especially since I lost money on the deposit, because another one where everybody who has it in hand just raves over it. So big congrats to you on that. I should have followed your lead and rebought.
Well, thank you, and it's definitely one that hopefully will be around so you can pick up later down the road if you ever decide to. I do feel like it's the best out of all of that line, and I agree. I think Superman and Cyborg were two really strong ones in that line, especially. But man, I absolutely love that statue. So anyway, we're down to our top two. What's your number two?
So my number two, I got last month actually, and I had to ask myself, do you love this because it's new? I do. But that's not why it's number two. Number two is by XM Studios. It is their Batman Shogun on horse. This is my 6th or 7th piece in the Samurai line, and I have quite a few more on order. This one, while its presence and size does say a lot about it, even without that, I think it's one of the best pieces that XM Studios has ever made. There's so many intricacies in this, from the switch outs to, the Joker statue on the base, to the horse that's, half robot, half, who knows what. I like a lot of things they're doing with the Samurai line. I'm almost all in with it. And they've recently shown some other teasers too, which I thought were phenomenal, with Penguin and Joker, and then even a new Batman for newer collectors that maybe missed out on this one or the previous one. But huge fan of it. I'm also redoing my display so I can showcase this in the center of a collection, just because it commands that presence.
I agree 100% on that piece. We had collector George Raw review it for our channel, and the first thing I noticed about it, or any of the reviews, including yours, it is a piece of art. All of these statues you can look at as art, but I feel like that one, more than just about anything that I've ever seen, could just be a standalone art piece in the middle of your collection, even if it's the only thing that you have. Because on first glance you don't notice it's Batman necessarily, but once you see it close up, then you're like, okay, oh, look at the Joker base, look how great this Batman sculpt is of that samurai look. I just have never seen a piece like that truly speaks to me as true fine art. Do you see it that way as well?
Absolutely. And I think, when we talk about it, I think Chris and I, we both say this a lot on our channels, is this is a piece of art. We mean it could literally be in a museum, literally, or some kind of other venue other than someone's home. And it's crazy to think that we as regular people own some of these pieces that are in our homes, where other people pay admission to go see them.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's kind of why I always wanted to make my collection look kind of like a museum. I know it's not necessarily that way, but that's my goal, is to kind of have that museum feel. Because again, these are, it's like you go to a museum and you see this vase that's lit up and it's 300, 400 years old. Again, this stuff is just fine art. Like, it is just so well done. And I don't know about you, but I feel incredibly lucky to be around this stuff.
Yeah, and I think also that's a justification in our heads that this is, high-end art. It's not, really expensive action figures.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of not action figures, this is my number 2, and we mentioned it earlier, so I won't bore you too much, but of course it is the Prime 1 Studio 1/3 scale Batman Who Laughs. It's the best statue that I've ever seen in person. It is chock full of detail. The Robins are terrifying. The fact that they use real chain on it, and the figure itself, the statue itself is a museum pose, but it does tell a story. I talked about that New 52 piece. It just tells a story. It's like a moment from the comic, and I am not a giant fan of the Metal series. I did like the Batman Who Laughs individual issues, and I'm excited to see where the character goes. And I feel like he's one of the best new characters that DC has put out in a long time. But this statue, you have to see it in person to truly appreciate it. And again, I'm really glad that you own it as well, because it's just beyond epic.
Yeah, and we said this in the last video. What's funny is, YouTubers, you guys know there's a lot of YouTubers that have the same content, like obviously Batman Statue Collector and Xtreme channel. And while we're colleagues, we're also competitors. We're friendly competitors. And one of the things we try to do is, it's important to get your video out there first, if possible. It helps. It probably helps your views 20%, maybe more or less. And I raced home that day and I unboxed my Batman Who Laughs and figured out the chains, and I'm sweating and filming and editing, and I hit upload and I get a notification, Batman Statue Collector, Batman Who Laughs, right when I hit upload. So the last 2.5 hours of go time was just like, oh. But actually what was really cool is that was just your unboxing. And what I loved about that, I watched both the unboxing, then a few days later you did the actual review. I don't think I've seen you so ecstatic about a statue. And you just have a naturally cheery disposition, but man, you could really tell that it's clear that this statue is number 2 on your list. You can tell that if you go back and watch the videos.
Well, thank you. And I always try to convey that, but it was, my real emotion. And it's just like, I have a lot of Prime 1 statues, but to see that level, it's like all of these statues are here, but this one just went like up to here. And so I think that that's probably why my reaction was the way it was, is because everything about it was blowing me away. From the size to the fact that there's basically 4 statues on this one base. It just blew me out of the water. So I'm so thankful that we have that statue. And yeah, I always try to get my stuff out first. I know you do as well, because that's part of the game. But I'm just so glad that so many people like this statue and enjoyed both of our reviews. Just an incredible piece. So anyway, it's now time, drum roll please, to do our number 1 picks. What is your number 1 favorite piece in your collection as of right now?
So my number 1 actually really surprised me, because you would think naturally that your number 1 is most likely a character you love, and mine's not. But again, I think we go back to that art aspect that we just discussed. This is truly, it's actually right there. I can almost touch it. That's what she said. It is Prime 1 Studios' Alien Dog Maquette. Now, I love the Alien franchise. I love the Alien series, particularly the first 2 movies. I was not a huge fan of the 3rd movie, and if I had to pick all the Xenomorphs, this was probably my least favorite of all the ones that they've ever made. However, Prime 1 Studios just destroyed this statue in a great way. The paint, the sculpt are all unbelievably top-notch. The concept, and it just, I love the fact they made it in 1/3. I think that commands even more attention to it. And I keep looking because it's right there. But surprisingly, I think this is the best made statue, licensed statue in my collection.
Well, the one thing about like Prime 1 is I always promote Prime 1 as being a great company, great detail, but I collect only the Batman stuff. There's so many other licenses that they have that they're just knocking it out of the park. Jurassic Park or Aliens or video games, there's just so many things that they do well. And it really goes to show you how good their artists are, how good their painters are. And they only continue to get better in my eyes, as we just talked about with the Batman Who Laughs. And it's a big piece, right? It's a big piece in your collection.
It's huge, yeah. I mean, the real estate alone, because you got to think it's on that huge base. It takes up more than you almost want it to, but because it's so good, it's forgivable.
It demands your attention, right? It demands that you look at it every single time you come into the room.
Yep, absolutely. What's number 1 for the Batman statue collector? Hopefully, it's a DC piece.
It's definitely a DC piece. That would be really funny if I came out with a Marvel or Star Wars or something. But my number 1 piece is a piece that oftentimes surprises people. We've talked before about how if there was a fire in our house, which piece would we grab to try to save if we could? And mine is the OG Batman life-size bust. It's a piece that I spent $1,000 on. And this was years ago, so it was very expensive at the time. But it was aftermarket. You know, it had been on the market for a while from Sideshow. It had long sold out. And this piece is not as detailed. It's not as good as half the statues in my collection. But when I look at it, I see Batman. I see the ultimate rendition of him. I see him being the stoic hero. And so it just represents my love for Batman. So do all of these statues in my collection. But that bust, when I look at it, it just represents what I picture Batman in my mind to be. Better than any of the other statues in my collection. And I know it's a weird pick, but that's my number 1. Have you ever seen that piece in person?
I haven't seen it in person, and it honestly very much surprised me that was your number 1. When I heard that Batman Who Laughs was number 2 and not number 1, I was reeling. You know, what could it be? I wouldn't have guessed that in a million years. But I think a key aspect to that piece is I don't see it for resale very often. And I think that's usually a good indicator that, hey, this is a piece that's pretty amazing if people don't want to give it up.
Yeah, you do see the brighter blue version, you know, that more modern take with the yellow emblem. You see that one from time to time. They did that repaint, and at the time I was kind of like, maybe I could get that one and you know, be happy with it. But I'm really glad that I went with the dark version with the black. And yeah, you just don't ever see it up for resale. But again, it's a surprise pick, I know, but it's my favorite. So Anyway, so those were our top 10 favorite statues in our collection. Again, that probably will change tomorrow, I'm assuming, because again, you look at these statues and you kind of think, okay, well, I like this one for this reason today, but then tomorrow you say, well, maybe I like this one better. It's always evolving, and I know that your collection is always evolving as well. But I'm really excited to see what the future is, and maybe we should do this video again in a year just to see, or maybe tomorrow just to see the differences that we would pick. But I just want to thank you so very much. If people are not familiar with your channel, and I can't imagine anybody that isn't, but I want to give a shout out to your social media and stuff. Tell people where they could find you.
So on Instagram, we are Xtreme Collectibles. And when I say we, I just have multiple personalities. There is a Facebook page, not a group, but a page, the Xtreme channel. And then, of course, on YouTube, the Xtreme channel.
Well, definitely do me a favor. If you're not subscribed to his channel, please do so, and tell him the BSC sent you. That would mean a lot to me. And again, just watch his content, because he's literally got amazing videos every single day of the week. And I know he's incredibly hardworking, and he has a very strong passion for this hobby, just like I do. And I tip my hat to you, sir.
Well, I appreciate it. You're one of the statue reviewers and statue channels that inspired me to start. So
that's awesome. That means a lot to me. But anyway, thank you guys just so very much. I hope you enjoyed it. A kind of a long video today, but hopefully you stuck with us. I can't thank you enough. If you're new here to our channel as well, please hit the subscribe button and hit that like button, and let us both know that you enjoyed this content. And just thank you guys for spending your time with me today. I really appreciate it. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you in the Batcave. Goodbye, everybody. Hey guys, thank you so very much for watching today, and if you're new here, please hit the subscribe button right here on the screen and check out these two awesome videos. I think you're going to love them. And also please join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I would love to have you join in all the fun. Thank you guys so very much for watching. See you in the Batcave.